Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where pharmacists can fill your pet's prescriptions, helping you pamper and protect your pet with pills, peanut butter, toys, and treats. Stop into the store today or visit Safeway.com.
The U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds plan to soar over Colorado Springs today. That is part of the Air Force Academy graduation. The best place to watch is, of course, the Academy grounds. But for those who can't get in there, watch parties are also planned throughout the area. Just a reminder, pretty please don't pull over on I-25 just to watch. And of course, congratulations to the graduates. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. Coming up, road rage is on the rise in Colorado.
Anything from a pedestrian car collision to a fisticuff to menacing with a handgun.
Then, the lasting impacts of the protest movement in 2020. Colorado cities have paid out millions in settlements.
Many of them had severe, even life-changing injuries.
Also, two prominent artists explain the role they see for art in protests.
Art that's on the street is the voice of the people who are coming from those neighborhoods.
And turn up the volume for this week's Art Spotlight, featuring a whole lot of funk. It's Thursday, May 29th. Here's the news in Colorado today. If you're driving right now, maybe take a deep breath. The number of road rage incidents in Colorado is going up. Your Sometimes host and CPR reporter, Haley May, is tracking the data, and she's here to tell us more about this trend. Hey there, Haley.
Hey, Arlo.
Road rage feels like something that happens in private. Do we know how bad it is here?
Well, right now, Colorado is outpacing most of the states for road rage incidents, coming in third in the nation, according to the latest Consumer Affairs report.
Third in the nation. Wow. What else do the numbers show?
Colorado State Patrol's emergency dispatchers answered more than 30,000 calls about road rage or aggressive driving last year alone, and numbers from Denver police show just how much of an increase they've seen, too. Last year, they clocked nearly 500 road rage incidents. That's more than double since 2020. And even though fewer people were on the road in the pandemic, experts I spoke with say that that's still a big jump.
Yeah, those numbers are definitely sounding high. Were you able to get a sense of why this is happening?
Well, local law enforcement leaders point to personal stress, changing culture, and then some lingering habits from the pandemic when there were less cars on the road. That's something I asked George Brockler about. He's the DA for Douglas County, and he's got a few explanations.
I think we have become so tribal and so intolerant of each other in terms of any differences that when something happens in an already inclined to be stressful situation like driving, there are a percentage of people out there who resort to a largely emotional and negative response.
Road rage is something we've likely all experienced in some form, but the frequency and intensity of cases could also be tied to an increase in gun ownership across the state. Here's Brockler again.
We have a significant number of people out there who are driving with firearms in their car. And some of those people make responses, anything from a pedestrian car collision to a fisticuff that takes place on the side of the road or a parking lot to menacing with a handgun where people gesture to someone on the road with a handgun or the actual use of a firearm.
The number of road rage incidents in Colorado that involve a shooting is nearly twice the national average.
That's definitely terrifying. Is there any hope that we can fix this?
I think that culturally right now we're just facing a new era where people are more isolated than before, and that makes it really easy to kind of forget that there's a person inside the vehicle that cut you off or that's going slower than you'd like them to. That's something Brockler mentioned when I spoke with him.
You don't have to get on the road to see people devalue and treat each other poorly. You can be on social media for 3 minutes and see that take place. But I don't think that stays on social media anymore. It just shows up behind the wheel in a more dangerous way.
Definitely a great reminder as more people get out on the road for summer trips across the state. Thank you so much, Haley.
Thank you.
Thousands of Coloradans streamed into the streets 5 years ago to protest racism and police use of force. In Metro Denver, that sometimes drew a violent response from officers, and as a result, taxpayers will face millions of dollars in penalties. Denver and Aurora have collectively paid out more than $19 million to settle more than 20 lawsuits. Other cases are still pending. Bozzy talked to Denverite's Kyle Harris, who recently reviewed each of the lawsuits.
Kyle, so far, most of these cases were settled, so most of the protesters who were injured by police never really got their day in court. Why is that?
There's a good chance juries may have been very sympathetic to the plaintiffs. Many of them had severe, even life-changing injuries. In all the cases I reviewed, those plaintiffs said that they were being peaceful when police unnecessarily used excessive force against them.
Can you tell me more about that use of force? Denver and Aurora police were called in to manage these huge crowds. The Denver mayor at the time had declared a state of emergency. So what did police do that led to injuries and these lawsuits?
I think the first thing is a police response is not unusual when there's such huge crowds. And by and large, these protests were not violent. Our reporters who were there on the ground saw lines of police in riot gear, sometimes just quietly standing guard in front of local businesses. At one point, the protests did spill onto the interstate, so police were there to try to control the movement of the protesters. But our reporters also saw many instances when police were heavy-handed in dealing with crowds that were largely peaceful. Officers used projectiles like rubber bullets, beanbag shotguns, and rubber ball grenades. Police also used tear gas and pepper spray, and even batons. The lawsuits came not just from protesters, but also from medics, lawyers, and journalists who say they were just there to do their jobs and were not being disruptive when they were attacked by the police.
And how were they injured?
In all sorts of pretty brutal ways. They reported injuries from the munitions, including disfiguring burns, respiratory problems, lost eyes, brain injuries, fractured bones, and in one case, a ruptured testicle. They also reported a slew of psychological issues as a result of the police actions. Those included PTSD, anxiety, and nightmares.
It's hard to hear those stories about gruesome injuries. Could this happen again the next time there's a major protest movement? Have the police departments made any significant changes that would affect that?
Well, we can't predict the future, but both Aurora and Denver police departments say they have made some changes. A Denver police spokesperson told us those include new policies about when the department will use the kind of munitions they used back in 2020, improved processes for documenting use of force during protests, and also for how crowds are given orders to disperse. DPD said there is still work to be done and that the department is constantly learning.
Denverite's Kyle Harris, thank you.
Thank you.
The settlements that taxpayers are still footing the bill for are one way that the protests are still relevant today. The movement also helped bring about a sweeping police accountability law. It required law enforcement to wear body cameras, it banned chokeholds, and it aimed to hold officers personally liable for damages in certain egregious cases. Republican Bob Gardner was a state senator at the time. He supported the bill, but reflecting on it now, he says he was frustrated during the debates about police reform by what he believes was a lack of appreciation for the vulnerability of law enforcement officers.
Don't ever forget that every deputy, every officer who goes on duty doesn't know what that shift will hold for them and what decision they'll have to make and what decision they'll have to make in a split second.
Joe Salazar is an attorney. He represents individuals in cases against police officers and departments. He says the courts are still sorting out how far the changes passed in 2020 will apply.
It's still a baby law, and it's all being fleshed out. You know, I'm raising novel arguments under the law that still have not been ruled on by a court.
Meanwhile, the issue of police reform has become increasingly polarized at the state capitol. Out on the streets, walls got painted with images and messages of the protests. Those have largely faded, and yet we're in another moment of protests, albeit smaller, so far.
Art that's on the street is the voice of the people who are coming from those neighborhoods.
Recently, Local street artist and the lead singer of the Dead Pioneers, Gregg teamed up with Shepard Fairey, famous for his Obama Hope posters. They talked with students in CU Denver about why street art and protest art matter.
Gregg and Shepard, you want to come up on the stage?
I went to listen in and talk with them afterwards. As we're walking to our interview, Fairey shared how in 2008, during the Democratic National Convention, he got arrested in Denver. He was putting up hope posters, but police thought he was part of an anarchist group.
And they're like, yeah, you guys are going to get thrown in with the other anarchists. I'm like, I'm putting up Obama posters. They're like, yeah, if you're not anarchists, how come you're wearing all black?
So I asked him, what exactly is street art?
Street art has the inconvenience of often being ephemeral, temporary, because it's done without permission and someone may not like it, but it has the benefit of allowing the artist, as long as they have the courage to do it, to convey exactly what they want to convey. When the art itself is an act of defiance, even if the content isn't political, the act is political.
We are living in very divisive times. What is the role of art right now?
Art has to say the thing out loud. And it's not a talking point on the news. You know, you're creating a visual representation or an audible representation that is meant to articulate something that everybody else feels. I think that's true as an Indigenous person, being able to say something that is important to Indigenous people and trying to figure out another way to say it other than a talking point or a TED Talk.
I know that there's been a lot of movements. We have Babe Walls, we have Black Love Mural Fest, and there's all these other ones that have really kind of opened the doors for street artists here in Colorado. Based on that context, what would you like to be the future for street art?
Street art and activist art, these are things that have not been viable mediums up until recently. I mean, like institutions like a museum is not recognizing those things. They might appreciate it, but they're not going to pay for it. There's no money in it. And that's slowly shift. But I think what becomes really important is the accessibility of those things, particularly to marginalized communities. Art that's on the street is the voice of the people who are coming from those neighborhoods. Emmanuel Martinez does these incredible murals that he's been doing since the 70s, and they're all over Denver. He is a Mexican man that is doing these cultural murals. What are we doing to make sure that those murals stay in place? What are we doing to make sure that they are covered and documented and protected? That has to happen.
Orale! Shepard, same question. What would you like to see as the future of street art?
It's a generous spirit for street art, but that also you are not just purely isolated to street art where it's very difficult to earn a living, therefore favoring people who might have a trust fund or supportive parents. So I want to see street art looked at as, a gift to the public. For years I was treated like I was a vandal and a public enemy, and then all of a sudden street art sort of became more favorable, and I had about 5 minutes where I was welcome. And then I was yelled at for being a gentrifier about 5 minutes after that. So it's very fascinating how all these things work.
Gregg, Shepard, thank you so much for this.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
A totally different kind of art was just released for you to check out. It is a concert film from the collaboration between the Colorado Symphony and one of my all-time favorite jazz funk bands, Lettuce.
We're a funk band, but I like to say we're like a post-hip-hop era funk band.
Guitarist Adam Shmin Smirnov spoke with us from the band's tour bus. For this concert, the symphony played a series of revamped arrangements from Lettuce's catalog, done by another famous local name in music, Tom Hagerman from the band Devotchka. But they didn't have much time to prepare.
It's pretty much like, let's get together one night with the conductor by himself, and that was the only time that ever happened. And then you end up going day of show into the symphony, you do a run through with them, and you hit it. So it was an experience. That very first show, you could feel like there's a special kind of like tension in it. I know from some of my closer friend Lettuce fans that it was a very emotional experience. Some people told me they cried, and I get it, because I think I might have too. It was a big one. It's a feeling that's truly hard to describe. It's a little overwhelming and beautiful.
You can now check out the live album, aptly named Lettuce, with the Colorado Symphony, and as of last night, you can also see the film on the streaming service Veeps. For more ideas on what to do with your weekend, check out the Colorado Arts Spotlight. The Women Plus Film Festival is coming to Denver, or you can try Adult Night at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. See the full list in the link in our show notes.
Welcome to your life. There's no turning back.
Reporting for today's show came from CPR's Benta Birkeland and Michael Hughes. A note to the folks listening to Colorado Today on the NPR app. The app is having problems. NPR is working to resolve them, but in the meantime, please bear with us. Thanks for your patience, and if you want to try Apple Podcasts or another app but want help, shoot us an email, coloradotoday@cpr.org. We'd love to talk to you. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.